And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome tonight's screenwriter turned thriller author, Susan Walter, whose audience is barking excitedly.
I know. I knew this was going to happen. He barks when people come by. Chase,
that's totally okay.
There he is. He'll make a surprise appearance.
There he is.
He's actually the star of my second book, Over Her Dead Body. So now you know.
Oh my God. Well, we are so excited to chat with you both and to talk all about Running Cold, which is out tomorrow. And we're here for the pre-launch exclusive Q&A. So Susan, tell us about this book.
Okay, first let me say I'm fangirling a little bit because I'm so excited to meet you. Your book I did a festival tour and your book was everywhere, and I was like, I need to meet this author someday. So this is a very exciting moment for me. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here.
I did write a book called Running Cold, and it takes place in the most magical place on earth. That's actually, you're holding up the cover. That is the real place. So that's Banff, Alberta, which is in the Canadian Rockies. And it's a place my family and I sometimes are fortunate enough to go to during Christmas. And it's snowy and quaint and gorgeous and rugged and all the things. And so right in the middle of Banff is this spooky hotel. And it's like 120 years old, and it's made out of river rocks and stone, and it has these turrets. And I'm like, why has nobody written a murder mystery in this hotel? So I did. My character, her name is Julie. She's a former Olympic skier because mountains, hello. And she is falsely accused of murder, has to escape from her job as a chambermaid at the hotel into the wilderness and snow and sleet and power outage while the police are hunting her down. And while she's out in the snow in the elements, she has to solve this murder. So it's a little bit, if you know the movie with Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones, The Fugitive, I call it The Fugitive with Chicks in a Snowstorm. Because it's got to be women. Right?
Well, I am so excited to chat with you, Susan, because Banff is a place I have always wanted to go and never been. I want to go for the turquoise blue mineral lakes. I want to go for the incredible mountains. I haven't made it over there yet, but it is on my top 10 list. I can't wait to go. So it was very exciting to live vicariously through the snowy pages of Running Cold. And I had so many moments where I laughed and related to Julie's ultra competitiveness. And we're going to get to that and so much more. But first, I just want to welcome everyone because we are broadcasting live to 7 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So, hey, mystery and thriller loving friends, no matter where you are watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday because Mondays can be murder. We are going to make them a little less painful and get your week off to a killer start. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask Susan about life in LA, her writing practice. Is she up at dawn? Is she pounding the keys until midnight? We don't know. We need to know. Ask her about her screenwriting career, her thriller career. Anything goes on Mystery and Thriller. We always get those questions going in the comments. Randy is joining us from YouTube. Ooh, very on brand with his black kitty. He's saying, hi, everyone. Hi, Randy. Oh, we have our fellow mystery author, Marcy McCreary, in the audience.
Hi, Marcy.
Saying, hi, Sarah. Hi, Susan. Did someone say spooky hotel? We sure did. Paulette is joining us from Facebook saying, hello, ladies. Congratulations on the new book, Susan. And I am all about a spooky hotel. Paulette, I am loving that stack, that turquoise, a carefully curated turquoise book stack in your hands. And we're going to talk about spooky hotels and all the good things. Okay, so let's start with the spooky hotel. I didn't realize that was a real place until just this moment.
Okay, so I'll tell you about the Banff Springs Hotel. People have died there. There was, it's very hush-hush, but if you talk to the locals, there's on the 6th floor in the West Wing, there's a room missing. There's like they skip a number, and you're like, why did they skip a number? And there's like a long pause between room number, I can't remember the numbers, but 916 and 919. You're like, where is the hotel? I mean, where's the room? They boarded it up because there was like a murder suicide in there. So I think somebody is accused of killing his wife and either one or two children. And they just boarded up the room and wallpapered over it. So that's in there. I don't know when the last time that room was visited. And then
by ghosts or guests or either. We don't know.
They won't say. It's not on their website. But also what is on their website, or maybe not on their website, but there's like a plaque on the wall. A bride was getting married there like in the 30s, I think, 20s or 30s. And she had like the long train and she was walking down the stairs, caught her heel in her dress, tumbled, broke her neck, died on her wedding day. Another thing that happened there. So people have died there.
No,
but you can feel the death in the air. And also the architecture is so spooky. If you look up in the eaves, like, in the corners of the room and on the fireplaces, there's these gargoyles and they're all making these like snarly faces. It's amazing. So yes, it's a spooky hotel and it's super old and it burned down once and they rebuilt it.
Oh my God, I'm still processing. Paulette, I need to go here. Paulette, book the trip. I'm in. So when my book came out, I had one of my Philadelphia launch event where I am from at a haunted castle, and someone also died on the stairs, caught her heel on the steps, plummeted to her death, but broke her neck and died. But what's really interesting is that ghost is said to live on the stairs. And when other people catch their feet, she catches them and lifts them up with her energy so that they don't also tumble down. So a lot of people have reported tripping, falling, pitching forward, and then something catches them, picks them up, pushes them, props them back up so that they don't also die on these stairs. But the idea that someone died on their wedding is somehow even more horrible.
I think that's cool. I think, Sarah, you and I have to have like goals for when we're ghosts of something we need to do to be good ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. And I think exactly we have to be good ghosts. Yes, exactly. A bride died there on her wedding day. That is somehow even more horrible. Marcy saying, I want everyone to know that I devoured this book. It is a fast-paced thriller/mystery, and you need to be wrapped in a blanket because Susan makes you feel cold while reading it. I love that. So I was recently launching the Nantucket Book Festival Children's Book Day there, which was not a mystery thriller or anything to do with death, murder, or mayhem. I was, feeding young minds positive stories. And Marcy McCreary walked up holding your book and said, I saw Susan on your website. She's coming on in October. Let's take a selfie with the book. And we did in the middle of the Nantucket Children's Book Day. There we were celebrating murder and mayhem. And she told me how much she loved this book. So Marcy, and I had just finished reading it. So I love that you're joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcy.
Yay. Okay. So Susan, let's get into the details. Okay. So Julie, a former Olympian in an event that I did not realize was a real thing, where you ski as fast as you can with a rifle on your back and then you shoot. So it's both a skiing and sharpshooting event. Which happens to come in handy later. Both skills come in handy at the end of the book with that twist that I did not see coming. What? How did you think of this? Why is she? Tell us everything. Tell us.
Okay.
Everything.
Well, first of all, if there's mystery thriller readers out there, like everything's kind of been done. I mean, there's maids in hotels. We've seen that. We've done that.
Not a skier / sharpshooter.
Skiing and sharpshooting. Like I've read Ali Reynolds' great book Shiver, and they're snowboarders, and that takes place in Chamonix, France. And I thought that was so cool. But I was like, okay, well, snowboarding's already been done, and downhill skiing. I was gonna be downhill skiing, and then my husband, bless his heart, said, well, I mean, you could give her a gun, make her a biathlete, and then work it in somehow. And I was like, yeah, that's brilliant. And that's why I married him. So yes, we're in the mountains. There has to be skiing, right? And then add a gun, and it's a sport. It's a sport that not very many people are aware of.
No.
Right? Yeah, and it originated in Russia and Finland when they were warring with each other, and they had to train the soldiers how to navigate the terrain on skis and shoot each other. And then it sort of just evolved into a sport because why not? And now it's an Olympic sport.
Well, as I was watching the Summer Olympics and watching the sharpshooters, because of course there's no skiing in Summer Olympics, I was thinking of this book, and especially the two people that everyone was talking about on all of the memes, which was the woman who had the very, high tech spy glasses on, who was there, and then the guy who looked like he just woken up from a tequila and stumbled onto the place and took aim. And it was so funny to think, I was reading your book and watching these Olympics. I just absolutely loved it. So yes. And I learned that there is this skiing, sharpshooting, Olympic event. So that was very cool.
Well, what's insane is we think we know cold, right? You lived in Boston. I lived in Boston. I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia. But there's a whole nother level of cold that if you go to the Canadian Rockies, it's the place where Celsius and Fahrenheit meet is minus 35. So people are like, how cold is it? And I'll be like, it's minus 35. And they go, Fahrenheit or Celsius? I'm like, it's the same thing. And literally you can go on my Instagram and scroll. You'll see pictures from there. My eyelashes, as soon as you blink, if there's any moisture, you get these crystals on your eyelashes and they bump up on your eyebrows. It's really, really cold.
Oh my God. Okay. That is cold. And I don't like to be cold, but yes, I'm feeling that cold just thinking about it. John is joining us from Northeast Ohio on Facebook. Hey, John, welcome to the conversation. Renee is joining us also from Facebook saying, I finally found everyone. I posted comments and questions. No worries, Renee. We are broadcasting live to 7 different destinations. So you're in the right place, my friend, just where you are. Welcome to the conversation. She wants to know, what is this event actually called?
It's called the biathlon. And if you do this event, you're a biathlete. I mean, it's so generic, right? It has no ski, shoot. There's a better name in there that I wish somebody had come up with. But yes, it's called the biathlon.
Because up until then, I thought biathlete just meant you played more than one sport.
Right?
I'm clearly not a sports girl. So I don't know what I'm talking about. But when I read that, I was like, wait, does she play? Does she have more than one event? But I was like, no, that is what it is called. So very cool to learn that. And thank you for asking. Thank you for asking, Renee, and clarifying that for us. So let's talk about some of this praise. First of all, since we're talking about how cold it gets in Canada, from one of our favorite, Renee saying, thank you for answering her question. Of course, Renee, that's what we're here for.
Hi, Renee. I know Renee.
Yay! One of our favorite Canadian writers, Robyn Harding, who's been on for her last 2 books, has this to say. She says, set in the stunning but unforgiving landscape, Running Cold is chilling, both literally and figuratively. This twisty tale of murder secrets and exceptional human grit had me flying through the pages.
Thank you, Robyn.
Thank you, Robyn. We just saw Robyn and interviewed her at Thriller Fest as well. And she's not the only one raving. Catherine McKenzie, who was also one of our Thriller Fest guests, had this to say. She said, when Julie's life is ripped apart by her husband's untimely death, it's just the beginning of the journey that will lead her into her dark past and the secrets that swirled around her sight unseen. A taut page turner that draws you in and never lets you go. That's from the USA Today bestselling author of I'll Never Tell. Great praise there. And I want to talk about your how you write, but first I want to get to some of these questions. Renee said, didn't Tess Gerritsen mention and practice this event in her last book?
The last book I read of hers was The Spy Coast.
Yeah, I think,
and that's in Maine, right? On coastal Maine.
Yes.
If Tess Gerritsen did it, yay, because I love her.
You know what, Renee? I am thinking back because Tess has been on for her last 3 books, and I did not see it in those last 3 books, but I may be blanking in this particular moment. So I will look into that, or you look into that, and we will circle back on that. But she is in Maine, and her Maggie Bird is the main character, was into cross country skiing, and was a former spy, so she was shooting, but I don't know. I don't think she was an Olympic, but maybe she referenced it. But so yeah, I'm not sure about that. Let's think about that. Paulette saying, I'm reading Running Cold now. It is so good, but I love all of Susan's books.
Thank you, Paulette.
Okay, so Susan, this is book 4 for you?
Yes.
Okay, so clearly we have some fans in the audience. I love that. What have you learned from book 1 to book 4 that you wish you'd known on book 1?
So people ask, does it get easier? And I'm going to actually say no. It gets harder because there's no repeats, right? So you're like trying to figure out how to kill somebody. In the first 2 or 3, you're like, oh, I can kill them in these different ways or set them in these different places. And then you get to book 4 and you're like, oh, I should kill him like this. And you're like, oh, but I already did that in book 4. So for me, the challenge is like how to keep it fresh and how to come up with plots. And plus, you know, you and I are big readers and we read a lot. And like Renee was saying, like, didn't Tess Gerritsen do that? I was like, oh shoot, did somebody else do that already? And I already got like people like, wait, because Julie in the book is a maid. And there have been a couple famous authors who've done books about maids in the last few years. And I'm like, yeah, but she's a different kind of maid. She's just a maid by circumstance. And I'll tell you the circumstance is her husband commits suicide in the first chapter. And that's not a spoiler. And she has no money. She has nothing to live on. And she can't stay in the house because the house is so full of memories. So the most logical thing for her to do is go somewhere and get a job where she can also live. And she has a connection to this spooky hotel. So when she goes to work as a maid to support herself, she moves into the hotel. So yes, she's working as a maid, but who she is, she's not a maid like Nina Prose's maid. She's a maid. She like lives and breathes and is so good at her job. And the job is a big part of who she is. But for Julie, that's not the case. So I forgot your question.
So we're talking about how does from book 1 to book 4, what have you learned from book 1 to book 4? And you're saying it doesn't get easier and your challenge is to keep it fresh.
Yeah, I mean, the first book, I didn't know that I was going to be a mystery thriller writer. It was early 2020 and the pandemic just hit. And my first book is called Good as Dead. I wrote it just because I'd worked in the movie business as a screenwriter and movie production kind of ground to a halt. And I just needed to write. My kids were home and I wrote it just for me. And I didn't have any expectations from it. And it took as long as it took. It didn't matter. No one was waiting for it. And then when you start to become like a quote unquote professional writer on book deals and deadlines, it just feels really different. You want to keep that playfulness that, you know, you write when you're inspired and you try things and you play. But also if you have to turn in the book in 6 weeks, you can't play as much. You kind of have to be more in your brain, organized in your brain. So, writing on a deadline, I think, was the biggest difference from writing book 1, which like I said, it was just play. I was just like, oh, I'll just write for a while and then I'll stop when I feel like stopping. But when you have a deadline and a production schedule, you have to sometimes write when you're not sure what the words are. And there's a lot more like backtracking and erasing and trying again, because you just feel like you have to keep going. That was my experience anyway.
Do you prefer screenwriting or writing novels? Great question, Renee.
I love that question. I'm going to say, you know, writing novels is a pretty solitary experience, right? You pitch the idea and they either buy it or they don't. And then you go off and write it. And it's 6 to 9 months when you're just kind of by yourself. Nobody asks you about it. They don't care how it's coming. They just give you a deadline and you turn it in on that deadline. Whereas screenwriting is much more collaborative. So you go pitch your idea and they go, oh, well, give us an outline. And so they give you some money to do an outline. You turn in the outline and then they go, well, we like these things, but we don't like these things. And there's a lot of different voices telling you which way to turn and when. And it doesn't matter if you agree with them. They paid you, so you do what they tell you. And sometimes it's wonderful because you get an infusion of creativity and new ideas that you wouldn't normally have. And sometimes their ideas are great, but sometimes those ideas, because they're coming from lots of different voices, like producers and sometimes a star, and they don't mesh very well with your vision, but you kind of have to find a way to make it work. And it can also be really frustrating. So I mean, I like them both for different reasons. I like screenwriting. When the collaboration works, it's really exciting. And you're getting ideas from a lot of different smart people. But sometimes not all the people are so smart. So you have to kind of fit their mold, and that can be hard.
That sounds really challenging. Marcy wants to know, do you outline or pantsit?
Oh, yeah. So that's a great question. So the first one was totally pantsed, right? Because I didn't have a deadline. I didn't know what I was doing. I just was writing for fun to get through the pandemic. And the book turned out really well. It's still my best-selling book. That's Good as Dead. And then they were like, oh, we want a second book from you, and you have 6 months. And by the way, while you're working on that book, you also need to be developmental editing your first book, which is, revising and making that better. So I'm working on 2 books at the same time. So I was like, oh, I better be organized. I better outline, because I got to make sure that I know where the book is going. And I did an outline, and I wrote to that outline, and the book was done a month before I had to turn it in. And it was terrible. It did not work at all. I wrote to the outline. I was very strict. I was very tough on myself, but I was also dishonest in places, right? So when you come up with an outline, you don't really know your characters necessarily as well as you do when you're halfway or 3/4 of the way done with the book. And I didn't know my characters very well, but I already decided what they were going to do. So I forced them to do these things that were in my outline. And then at the end, I felt like the book was not authentic or honest. I didn't believe some of the choices that the characters made. Once again, I gave to my husband. I didn't say anything. I was like, I finished my book. Here, read it. And I knew there was a problem, because normally he reads my books in like a day or 2 days. And it was like 4 or 5 days, and he still hadn't finished it. He's like, yeah, I don't know. I just can't get into it. And I had a month left, Sarah. And I was like, well, I got to fix it. And I went back to, books are usually about 80,000 words, or my book's about 80,000 words. I lopped off the last 70,000 words. I went back to 10,000 words, and I wrote that second push in like 5 weeks without an outline, trusting myself and getting to know my characters and doing what was honest and getting them into trouble in a spontaneous way. Like, ooh, okay, I feel like she needs to get into trouble now. What's the worst thing that could happen to her? And coming up with it on the spot. And since then, I learned to trust my process, which is like no outlines. I don't outline. I can't.
I feel like I could, now that I know that now that I know that your process is to ask, what is the worst thing that could happen to her? It's all making sense, because as I'm thinking to myself, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is you're at lunch with your girlfriends, and you come home and find your husband dead. And then what is the worst thing that could happen? And it is every single thing that you learn that you thought he had all these savings, and you actually are penniless and in huge debt, and you're going to be unhoused in about a minute. Like, so and then what's the worst that could happen now? And I'm like, oh, this is how you winch that tension up, crank by painful crank into at every turn, thinking, what is the worst that could happen? I love that.
Okay. But you can get yourself into trouble. That happened to me with Good as Dead, when I was just pantsing it, as we say, flying by the seat of your pants. I got to a place, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how to get her out of this. I did this thing, worst thing that could happen, worst thing that, and I don't want to give away the ending, but if you ever do read it, when you see how it ends, you'll be like, oh, that's how she fixed it. That's amazing, because there was only one thing I could do, and it was extreme, and I did it. But if you fill the book up to that point, right, you're at like 60,000 words, and you have to do something extreme to get out of that. If you built good characters and they've made honest choices to that point, I feel like, and I learned this from Lisa Jewell, because if you read Lisa Jewell, she does such intricate character work. And then her endings are like, what? She did what with the character? Right? Like, are you kidding me? Is that even possible? That feels so insane. But she earned your trust by building characters that are so honest and intricate that when they do this insane thing, you're like, okay, I buy it. So I did the insane thing in Good as Dead, and hopefully you buy it.
Well, Running Cold is out tomorrow, and you can buy it from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is Murder by the Book. So whether you're joining with us on Facebook or YouTube, here is that link. Click and pre-order, and the good folks at Murder by the Book will send it to you first thing tomorrow morning. As always, you can DM me a copy of your receipt, and I will get you a signed copy from the author. Let's go back to what you were talking about a few minutes ago with keeping it fresh. And constantly trying to find new ways to kill your poor victims. Oh my gosh. Oh, wait a minute. Robyn saying, well, Robyn, welcome, by the way, saying lopping off 70,000 words. Oh my God. I'm still feeling the pain of that lopping as well, Robyn. Yes. Thank you. I love that. Someone said, what is your favorite way to murder someone?
Okay. So I don't do sexual violence, or I don't do like serial killers. Some people like to go to those really dark places. I can't. The first one, I'm not giving anything away because he's dead and you find out how he died in maybe chapter 2 or 3. Like, I ran over a guy with a car. It was a hit and run. And we don't know who did it, but somebody does know who did it. And it's a sort of cat and mouse game. What do they have to do to keep that person silent? And sort of the guilt and the temptation to talk and just, reveal who did it is the simmering tension through the whole thing. So I liked running over someone with a car because it creates, it's an accident and you really should come forward, but also it's scary to come forward. And if you don't come forward right away, then it gets harder and harder and harder and harder. And it's something I felt like anybody could do by accident. A bee flies in your car and you lose concentration for a second, you could kill somebody. Like, I think about that not all the time, but I could lose consciousness and kill somebody. And are you bad if you did that?
Or sneezing. I always worry that I'm going to sneeze. I'm like, yeah.
I mean, it could happen to anyone. So I like that because it made the moral ambiguity was fun to play. And, you can't, once they're dead, right? And so why should the person who did it come forward if there's nothing they could do? I mean, it's the right thing to do, but also there's reasons not to do it. I don't want to give anything away, but there's also reasons to not do it. So I like that. So that was my favorite one. It's my first one. And yeah.
The headline will be Susan enjoyed vehicular harm.
Oh, but the second one, I can't tell you how I did it because it's the twist. But in the one that's starring my little furry friend, who I don't know where he went, my dog Chase, that one you'll be like, what? But I can't tell you. You have to read the book.
I love that. I love that. Robyn, thank you for joining us. Hello to you too. Oh wait, I missed that comment. Yes, yay. Hello, Sarah and Susan. Hello to you, Robyn. Thank you for joining us. You guys, the book is out tomorrow and you can pre-order it tonight, whether you're watching with us on Facebook or YouTube. Here again is that link to get your mitts on your cold mitten clad hands on a Running Cold, which drops tomorrow. Susan's coming on tonight to give us the exclusive inside sneak peek. I want to get to some of this other praise. Jessica Strasser had some wonderful words to say. I'm going to put all of the blurbs in the comments so you guys can read them at your leisure. This one said, Running Cold starts with a memorable protagonist, a former Olympian put to the ultimate test in the wake of her husband's death. What begins as a fight for answers turns into a fight for survival. But through it all, she's tough as nails, easy to believe in, and fun to cheer for. Susan Walter delivers a satisfying race to the finish. And we have other praise here from Tessa Weggert, Samantha Bailey, Gary Goldstein, Jess Lowry, and Hannah Mary McKinnon, another cold-blooded Canadian. Those ladies know a thing or two about the cold. Tessa also is Canadian, so we've got all our Canadians here. Hannah Mary McKinnon saying, Running Cold is a read in one day kind of book that pulls you in from the opening pages and won't let go. Thrilling, fast-paced, atmospheric, with a heroine that you will cheer for. This story will keep you entertained until the satisfying ending. Highly recommend. Margaret is joining us from YouTube from the Pacific Northwest. Welcome, Margaret. Renee saying, we love Hannah Mary McKinnon. Yes, Hannah's been on
Love.
all 5 of her books. I think Hannah has been my most frequent guest, which has been absolutely wonderful. One of my very first guests.
Love her.
Yay. All right, y'all, we are out of time. Time flies when you are having this much fun. So I'm going to put all of the rest of Susan's incredible blurbs from Jess Lowry, Samantha Bailey, and so many more in the comments so that you can enjoy them at your own leisure. Jess saying Running Cold is an atmospheric thriller packed with sharply drawn characters and breakneck twists, but it's the rich details that really set it apart. They make you feel like you've been airdropped into the story. I love that. So Susan, happy Pub Day tomorrow. How will you be celebrating?
Actually, I'm going to somebody else's book event. I'm going to Elise Hart Kipnis is doing an author event at Zibby's in Santa Monica. And she invited me before I thought about what I wanted to do. So I'm going to go to her event and celebrate her, because you kind of got to get out of your head a little bit, right? You do the work and you put it out there, and it's up to readers now to discover it. And I'm going to go celebrate my author friends.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Well, I will be hosting Elise Hart Kipnis's launch in Boston on Tuesday, October 22nd. At Porter Square Books, the Boston edition in the Seaport. So anyone in the Boston area, please do join Elise and me then and there. We would love to have you. Susan, congratulations on Running Cold. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us. Have fun, Susan, says Renee.
Thanks, Renee.
Celebrate with another writer, says Robyn. Tell Elise I said hi, says Marcy. Perfect. Marcy will be at Porter Square. Wonderful. Porter Square, Boston, Marcy. Looking forward to seeing you there. All right, y'all, that is a wrap. Go get a drink, get a snack. I'll be back at the top of the hour with Del Sandine. Stay tuned.
Thanks, everyone.